Okay, let's just say that she's wearing this here. Like that's exaggerated here. So this is called a rounded shoulder. That's one of 4 types. So we're going to start with a rounded shoulder. So what impression does that give, that rounded shoulder? I'm asking you guys.
This thing.
Yes, it's very relaxed, okay? So there's something very relaxed about it. There's something very cozy and wrapping, like it's the cocoon, if you will. You know, if you have this egg shape around someone, they suddenly feel like they look like they're protected and they feel like they're protected. So it's cozy and protected. So if your collection, I don't know, if your collection is actually about a butterfly that you found in your yard, this might find its way to your collection. If you want to tap into the chrysalis and all that kind of stuff, you might end up working with around the shoulder. Whatever you do, make sure that you don't do this connection here where it's just a smooth line. That's a little exaggerated. Whatever you do, there will be a little bit of a dip, a connection where the 2 panels of fabric meet. Maybe one will dominate over the other, like this, for example. But whatever you do want to break the line where there is 2 panel meeting, and that's
And what if there isn't? Let's say there's no
connection, then you don't do anything. You're totally right. And we'll see some construction where it's actually a seamless connection between the main body and the sleeve. We'll look at this next. That's a really good point. So relaxed, cozy. It's a little old-fashioned as well. It's very, very nice, but right now it's...
Actually, we're seeing a lot of drop shoulder.
Yes, the drop shoulder is...
Oh, is that another type of
That's
shoulder?
another one, yes.
Never mind.
Yes. Now you're good. So I'm going to actually move on to the drop shoulder. So that was relaxed closer. So what do we mean by drop shoulder? Have you ever seen any drop shoulders?
Right.
No, the seam is lower.
It's lower.
The shoulder pad.
Yes. So we're going to actually find like this. That's called a drop shoulder. You're good. And so what impression does that give in terms of the physicality of your model and in terms of the story that it tells?
The arm is going down.
Yes, there's something kind of slouched about it, but it's not as slouched as the rounded shoulder. The rounded shoulder really will give you like this kind of falling. Whereas this here can actually be a little more tailored, a little more close to the body. I mean, so this is all a personal interpretation, but there's something borrowed and thrift shop about it because it suggests something that does not quite fit. You know, it's not exactly on the anatomical line. It's a little below, so it looks like something that you would have actually picked that is not only your size, but you made it work for you. So there's something borrowed. So it's definitely a good shoulder to go to if you want something to look vintage. Okay, so that's going to be your dropped shoulder. I think it's fairly comfortable. I've never actually put one on. All right, but it also makes the wearer look petite. Okay, so if you want your girl to look like she's fragile and all this, that will emphasize it because the garment is too big for her. Ergo, she must be quite small to actually be floating in those garments kind of thing. So there's something very gamine about it, very little girl. So we have the rounded shoulder, which was relaxed, cozy, and protected. All right. Another shoulder that you guys can think of. There's one that is really obvious that was very big in the 80s.
In padded shoulder.
It's basically the square shoulder. All of what you're saying is all synonyms to a square shoulder. So rather than having a natural slope and an attachment, we're going to kill the slope because we naturally have a slope to our arm. We're going to kill the slope by padding them. And then we're going to have the sleeve. Now, this is big right now at Balmain. Balmain does a lot of that kind of stuff. Okay. So this is the natural shoulder, that's the garment. So you're transforming the look of the girl. So what impression does a square shoulder give? Yes, it's definitely powerful. But these days, actually, this is something that Olivier Roustan at Valin has actually managed to do. Is he broke away the business aspect of the square shoulder and he just made it sexy, which is kind of weird, but it works. So he actually squared up the shoulder. It makes the girl look really, really tough, like a James Bond girl, but not tough in an accountant style. Tough in a, kind of super strong, seductress
Like
woman.
Femme Fatale type thing.
That actually is, yes, that's right. So that's more like looking towards the 40s. So it's kind of military, because what started it all was the military.
That film on the black, that style.
The film noir, yes, you're right. From the 40s, when women were actually adjusting clothes from their husband, they actually inherited the shoulders, but they made it work. So that's actually something looking to the 1940s. All right. We have one last, which is maybe not obvious. It's one that Alexander McQueen used a lot. You're not thinking about it because it's not obvious, but when I say it, it's going to be obvious. So what happens if rather than having a break here, the shoulder, the sleeve dominates the shoulder?
It's like a cap sleeve.
Yeah, well, not cap sleeve. Cap sleeve is a little cut sleeve, but you're getting there. I think the dome, it's based on that. The dome we're going to get to when we actually get to the attachments. But it's actually when we have a built-up shoulder. So we're going to have a regular-ish shoulder line, okay? But when we come to the sleeve, it's actually going to go up, okay? So very, very often it's got a little bit of gather on the shoulder
So
to
it's
actually.
like
Yes.
like dresses, something like that.
Yeah.
Little girls' dresses that
You like bridal?
costume.
Yeah.
What do you call
Like
that?
Elizabethan
Oh,
type.
that's ugly.
Built up.
Hot
So that's the built up.
Bad.
That one here.
It's in a lot of period piece dresses.
Yes. But the thing is that when it's well done, it's crazy beautiful. It's really, really nice. It has a bad rep right now because it's associated with piñatas and that kind of stuff. So,
What did they use to put in mutton sleeve?
yeah, mutton sleeve is actually a built up. That's a good one. So we're actually talking here about, it's actually extremely feminine because you don't see guys wearing that stuff. So it's still the privilege of the woman. Pretty cool. Then it's very feminine, it's very poetic, and it's historical. But not historical in the 1980s style, but historical in the castles and dragons kind of
So
stuff.
you mean like fairy tale?
Yes, there's something fairy tale-ish. But like I say, when it's well done, like Alexander McQueen did some crazy good of those sleeves. And there's some beautiful, some of them in Blade Runner that are just killed for. I mean, like
And then
Sean
like
Young's.
the Filipino traditional garment has a lot of that.
Yes, absolutely. So it's one to keep in mind when you're designing your collection because you'll make a maximum impact with it, and it's very simple to do as well. And if you can pull it, it actually gives you a good reputation. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 different shoulder
That we have
styles.
to draw?
Huh?
That we have to draw right now?
No, so you will have to, now you can actually choose to just, well, I think it would be a shame. You should choose 3 and try 3 different sleeves that you think would actually contribute to your collection. And then once you've done it, which one actually really works? So you have to start reading fashion like almost like as if you were a designer for movies, for example. So what is your character starting to become? All right, so I'm going to erase this and we're going to move on to the sleeve attachment options, which are important. And some of you guys are very, very familiar with. Am I good here? Okay. So some of you guys actually mentioned some of them when we're talking about the shoulder silhouette, if you will. So what do you think is the classic sleeve to shoulder attachment? The one that you don't even think of. It's just a satin sleeve. Okay, so that's going to be number 1, the satin sleeve.
What are these called again? What did you say?
Those are going to be called sleeve attachment option. That's beautiful. So you started with
So all of these visuals are on there.
yes. Shoulders option. and then you get sleeve attachment.
What was the first one you said?
Shoulder option, and now sleeve attachment option. All right, so the first is the second sleeve, which is just, that's a little too much. That's just basically that. You have a straight line that actually happens to be pretty much where your shoulder stops and your arms begin. And it's the classic, basically. It's really the classic one. It doesn't give much information. It kind of takes away the focus from it. It's a bit of a missed opportunity in terms of expressivity.
Like a t-shirt.
Yes, it's very predictable. Whatever you do, make sure that you actually use the inline if you can. Unless it really does not feel right, then just go for it. But all right, now another style of sleeve attachment, which you might think of when you think of athletic wear. Yes. That's gonna be another sleeve. Huh? Okay, so we're still thinking about the sleeveless and all this. That's going to come in sleeve variations. I know that's actually kind of gray zone. Sleeve variations is going to be where we're going to start talking about caps and 3/4 and sleeveless and outers and all this.
Raglan sleeve.
Yes, thank you. So the raglan, that's a good one to know, and there's a little variation which is called a saddle raglan.
Are we putting text on them?
No, I don't do that kind of stuff. So the raglan is when rather than having your panel running here, it actually runs here. So you've seen that thousands of times, and it's a baseball shirt, yes. Although, all right, and the saddle is going to actually run like this. Going to have a little bit more of a curved kind of seam. Let's just stick to the basic. So that's your baseball shirt. Extremely comfortable. That's the one that actually offers the most range while still being sewn. Because you have no attachment, you don't have any restriction here. It's very, very comfortable. But it sends a very strong athletic, almost menswear kind of message. Because you'll see a lot of coats for guys that are actually attached here. Trench coat is also sometimes actually sewn here. So there's something sportsy about it. But keep it in mind, if you're doing a collection that is inspired by an old jersey, you might actually end up doing that kind of stuff. Oh yes, sweaters are often assembled with a raglan. All right, someone actually said the next sleeve earlier when we were talking about shoulders. Yes, so the kimono is the next one. So in the kimono case, you have no attachment. Basically, the sleeve is a continuous panel. Like let's say that this is your body. We'll just do a round neck so that it's easier to picture. That's a mega super sleeve. So you basically have a continuous piece, and they're attached here, and then the arms can put. But as a result, you have a lot of extra fabric here, but you also have a restriction in terms of here, because you don't have the point actually wrapping around the body. Suddenly you're missing. So very often it's actually going to be attached to a gusset. So very often you'll actually have a little patch here to make do, which rarely appears on the sketch, maybe by a little patch. But this little gusset is going to add three-dimensionality to make up for the lack of room. But you also get quite a bit of fullness that is added, which is more or less elegant, particularly around this area. All right, so that was the kimono, and then we have a third one, which hasn't been around for a little while, but was big in the 80s, when everything was allowed in fashion. And it's the dolman. The dolman, which actually is it's a variation of the kimono. Basically what happens is rather than actually cutting in, we're going to give extra fabric here. Therefore, this is going to wrap around the body, but once again, you get enormous amount of, you're talking about enormous amount of fabric, and if you add weight enough, you're going to get the bat wing variation.
So
So that's like a captain.
That's a kaftan, yes. That's the basically I'm going to the pool and I just want to throw something on myself.
Oh, captains are in.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And they're super cheap to produce. All right, so those are the four relationship between the main body and the sleeve. Now we can look at the sleeve, which is our last point, the sleeve variations. I have an illustration. That's very, but that's such a vast topic. You have a lot of range of things to do. All right. Level of sleeve. All right. There. So I expect everyone will actually draw me variations of the pheasant. No, I'm just kidding. So we have all this here. So what we were talking about earlier, sleeveless cap, short, 3/4, and long, those are all variations of your length. They're gonna come with different signification. Of course, those are very simple because as soon as you've chosen your length, then you can dress it up. Like a short sleeve can actually become a puff or a petal or a lantern. Those are going to be fairly difficult to draw like this because they collapse. So they actually ask for your girls to stand up. That says something about whether or not they're comfortable to wear. So you see whether or not you want to have them. I heard leg of mutton earlier. That is definitely a built-up shoulder, and this hasn't been in style in a while as well. I had something else I wanted to show you.
But if we chose a more dramatic color, it just kind of looks crazy if you had a dramatic sleeve.
That's exactly it. You just tapped it. So Oni has a good dimension, designer recommendation. When you choose one crazy element, make sure that you don't go crazy all the way, because then it starts looking like it's ready for Halloween. So you want to invest in that one thing where you're going to go a little nuts, and then tidy up the rest so that it actually does not look completely crazy. You